This is the Dover Download Podcast. My name is Christopher Parker, and for the past 25 years, I've had the pleasure of working with, learning from, and talking to a variety of volunteer, staff, and community members. This podcast explores conversations, activities, and a variety of policies and programs which exist here in Dover to improve the community in one way or another. One of the most important deliberations the City Council has is its annual review of the operating budget. This year, City Manager Mike Joyal proposed the operating budget for the FY2026 year at the City Council's February 12th regular meeting during his manager's report. Today, Mike's going to join us and walk us through how he puts together a budget and why it's important for the public to be involved and invested in that budget process. Afterwards, we're going to segue to the presentation that Mike gave and listen in as he presents the budget to the council. So as I said, I think that it's well known that the council adopts a budget every year. Those deliberations are beginning. What can people expect as part of those deliberations? What sort of things do you plan on presenting, and what sort of things have you seen the council look for in the presentations about the budget?
By February 15th of every year, I have to present a proposed budget for the entire municipal corporation, which covers all of the services provided by the City of Dover, inclusive of schools, water, sewer, and all of our other traditional services, police, fire, public works. So that budget is presented no later than February 15th of every year. And from that initial presentation of a proposed budget, the City Council digs into the details of that budget, has a series of workshops, receives information from all the various departments on different services and activities that they are proposing or are required to undertake in serving the Dover community. That series of meetings, discussions are held during public meetings or public workshops held in City Hall. And in addition to that, there are public hearings that are scheduled, and there's actually at least 2 public hearings. One for the school portion of the budget and the other for all the non-school related activities. And the council solicits feedback, input from the various boards and commissions, and also from citizens through email, telephone calls, and in-person conversations, even meetings out in the community that they attend. And all of that feedback and that information, that input ultimately helps them decide on what level of spending, how resources should be allocated amongst the various services and to meet the priorities, the needs of the community. And that is done or completed at the end of a several-week process of reviewing the budget during another public meeting where the council will actually make amendments to the proposed budget and then vote to adopt a budget, which then goes into effect on July 1st for the start of that fiscal year.
One of the questions I've heard before is why July 1? Is there a rhyme or reason behind doing a July 1 to June 30th budget as opposed to a January to February? Is that something that you can walk the listener through?
Yeah, typically municipalities have either a July 1st to June 30th budget. Some of the smaller towns have a January 1st to December 31st fiscal year budget. Dover had opted many, many years ago to go with the July 1st to June 30th fiscal year, primarily because of the way it falls around the required tax billing dates, with a budget being established in July, and then the taxes for that budget are initially collected with the first payment due in December, and then the following payment is due 6 months later in June, just as the year is ending. Other communities collect their taxes ahead of time. Dover has chosen to do it so that there's 6 months in arrears, if you will. 6 months of services have been provided before the tax bill becomes due.
When the council adopts the budget, they will adopt it with a majority vote, unless they choose to override the tax cap, which requires a supermajority vote. If they want to amend in the future, is that the same process, or is there more to it at that point?
Yeah, it's not uncommon during the course of a fiscal year to have some forms of budget amendments. There may be a grant that has been applied for and funding has been received that was not originally anticipated in the initial budget adoption. So during the course of the year, when that grant becomes available and a decision is made to use those grant funds, there's a budget amendment that needs to be made to recognize the receipt of those funds and authorize those funds to be expended. Additionally, throughout the course of the year, there may be certain circumstances that occur. For example, although we're fortunate this year that so far anyway, we're not being inundated by snow and ice, but it is possible in New England that we could have an extremely bad winter. And although we budget conservatively for winter weather conditions here that we see here in Dover, if we had an extreme winter, we may need to exceed that budget. And there may be a possibility that the council would need to amend the budget, either by transferring funds from other areas of the budget or finding some other sources of revenue to make up for the shortfall.
The budget is rolled out by February 15th, and then approximately 2 months later, there's typically a conversation, the final conversation, adopting the budget or amending your budget to get to a point that the council wants to adopt. When do you actually start pulling together the elements of those budget areas to present in February?
In actuality, the budget process is a year-round process. So the development of the budget starts or continues even the day after the budget is adopted. Early on, soon after the budget is adopted, we are going back and reviewing our capital improvements program, which is the plan for the next 6 years of major expenditures for capital items like major roadway improvements, major equipment purchases, rehabilitation of existing facilities. And that planning process is an important part of the budgeting cycle. That takes place throughout the course of the summer and then ultimately results in our 6-year CIP being put together, recommended, and approved by the council later in the fall. And then that feeds right into the annual budget development process because obviously what's in plan for capital improvements will have an impact on the operating budget. For example, we may have an older piece of equipment that is in need of repair, but if we know that the plan is to replace that equipment in a relatively short time, we're probably not going to spend a lot of money to repair that piece of equipment, other than just to keep it in service long enough for it to be replaced. So that CIP influences the budget that's developed later in the fall and into early winter before it gets presented again to the council, proposed budget presented prior to February 15th of every year. The other thing I should note is the budgeting process isn't just about putting together estimates and providing the justification for the funding needed for services based on those estimates. It also is something that occurs throughout the course of the year as we evaluate services, we look for grants, we find perhaps better ways of doing business, more efficient ways of doing things, or even possibly looking at changing our services in some way that may have some sort of budgetary impact, either positive or negative, depending on what the circumstances are. So that is even going on outside of the actual review and adoption process. And that is an important part of managing the budget and then ultimately bringing all that information together in presentation to the council for them to consider and adopt.
While it's included in the budget document, your role with the school department's budget is more of a bring it together and package it up because the school board and the superintendent and his team have put together and deliberated that budget previously, correct?
Yes. Well, not only that, but Dover has an elected school board, as do virtually all communities in New Hampshire. And the school board is charged with overseeing and administering the public school system here in the city of Dover. And they are the ones that are most knowledgeable about, and they are the ones that assemble and recommend a budget for the school system. And that is not something that I have direct oversight for as city manager. And certainly the expertise of the school staff, the superintendent, the business administrator, and the decision-making of the school board is what drives the amount that gets included in the overall budget that I present to the council. Frankly, I have to defer to the school board's expertise and understanding of school operations because I do not have direct responsibility or authority over that.
Mike, as we wrap up, I think it's important to remind the listeners about the engagement opportunities. We know from the past that there will be a council workshop on the budgets as well as the public hearings in the next few meetings, starting on the 20th, which is a little awkward because it's a Thursday, but the council had a previous Wednesday commitment. That night, the executive, finance, planning, and welfare budgets will be discussed in workshop. And then on the 26th, we'll have the first public hearing. This will be on the school side of the budget. Following that, on Wednesdays, we'll have community services, we'll have police and fire, we'll have recreation, public library, all of the different departments and service areas will come forward on a Wednesday night as part of that workshop series, culminating on Wednesday, April 2nd, which is the first opportunity the council has to approve the budget before its April 15th deadline. If the council isn't ready to make that approval on the 2nd, they can have a fallback on the 19th. All in all, we encourage the public to come out to public hearings or to any meeting where there's a public forum which they can participate in. In addition to the public hearings and the opportunities to speak to the council directly, you can also follow along in the budget process with the Budget Revealed website. With this podcast, where we'll be interviewing department heads the week after their presentation to talk to you about what's in their budget proposals, as well as keep track through the Dover Download and other electronic means that we release on a weekly basis, including a special Budget Revealed newsletter, which goes out this time of year and is available to anyone that signed up for the Dover Download or through that same process off the city's website, www.dover.nh.gov. Finally, as we always like to remind people, you can email or call your counselor and give them that feedback through those means as well. Now we're going to turn it over to Mike Joyal's presentation to the City Council from February 12th on the proposed budget. Take it away, Mike.
This evening, I'm here to present to you the proposed budget for the forthcoming fiscal year 26. As I've done in years past, use this opportunity to present to the council and the public an overview of the proposed budget in anticipation of us digging into the details over the next couple weeks. So for all of you, I know this presentation is somewhat redundant, but if you would please bear with me, I think it's important for us to share this information with the public so they have an understanding of what goes into developing a proposed budget and what is the purpose of this budget. So, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council, in accordance with the City Charter, I respectfully submit to you. I have to wear my glasses, I'm sorry. I respectfully submit to you the City of Dover's proposed budget for fiscal year 2026. This evening, I intend to share with you and the members of the public an overview of the budget proposals that is detailed. I intend to share with you and members of the public an overview of the budget proposal that is detailed in the document on your desk and will briefly highlight some of the more significant adjustments that have been included. The sources and uses of funds proposed within this budget include those recommended by the school board and as proposed by the school board, along with estimates that have been assembled for all of the local government functions. I have also included our community's debt service obligations and my recommendations as city manager for various capital reserve allocations supporting infrastructure and equipment needs reflected in our most recently adopted 6-year capital improvements program. As in years past, this budget proposal continues to prioritize and support an efficient delivery of core municipal services. It continues to fund areas of public safety, education, and infrastructure maintenance. It does so by identifying the financial resources needed for the coming fiscal year, while also responsibly anticipating and ensuring the sustainability of the resources that are needed to meet our community needs in the forthcoming years. All combined, the budget proposal for fiscal year 2026 prioritizes and supports an efficient delivery of our community's core municipal services, along with other basic yet essential local government activities. It does so cognizant of current economic and financial conditions impacting our citizens and the challenges we continue to encounter with the recruitment and retention of qualified employees, and of course the inflationary pressures that drive the cost of products and services that are required across all areas of our municipal operation. Just so you know, I'm getting used to these glasses, so I apologize. This is all new to me.
No worries.
Apparently, this is what happens when you get older. The binder before you contains the proposed budget. As all of you are familiar from past budget reviews, a considerable amount of supplemental information will be provided in the presentations made over the coming weeks by each department. In addition to the budget binder you are receiving this evening, I will also be providing a separate written budget narrative for you. That budget narrative will provide an overview of the various responsibilities and functions of each city department as it's reflected in the proposed budget. The narrative will highlight each department's mission, the key strategic plan objectives, and significant adjustments that are reflected within each department's budget for the coming year. For members of the public, this narrative and an electronic version of both the full budget with a detailed and a summary version will be posted online that can be accessed 24/7 in the budget revealed area of the city website. Throughout the coming weeks, the most current recordings of all budget meetings, handouts, and other financial data will also be posted. And for anyone not able to access the internet, there will also be a printed copy of the proposed budget available for review in both the city clerk's office and in the public library, which, as a reminder, is temporarily located and operating out of the McConnell Center while the library building is undergoing renovations. So before delving into the overall numbers that comprise the proposed budget I'm sharing with you, it is important to recognize and understand the significance of the municipal budget and what it entails. The budget is first and foremost a policy document that reflects community priorities. It serves as a basis for accountability, and it establishes the legal spending authority necessary to deliver all municipal services supporting our community's quality of life. The budget also serves as a financial plan, which establishes funding requirements to meet our community needs and allocates the resources that are made available. It is an operational guide that is relied upon by our various boards, commissions, and, of course, our staff in planning for the delivery of services, again, meeting our various community needs. And finally, it is also an essential communication tool important for communicating our community's intentions and plans for meeting the needs of the citizenry, our businesses, and anyone else that's interested in the overall well-being and prospects for the city of Dover in the coming years. The service priorities and funding needs incorporated into our municipal budgets are influenced and adjusted in response to several different factors. These factors include the strategies and specific policy objectives, directives that are provided by you, our city council, and those strategies that are contained in our community's master plan and other department-specific operating plans. Ongoing contractual obligations with creditors, vendors, and our employee groups are reflected in the budget. State and federal mandates, which impact nearly every aspect of our operations, and the loss of revenue, including the downshifting of costs, all have to be accommodated in putting together the proposed budget. Changing economic conditions, operational needs, and the discipline to adhere to our established financial policies are all factors requiring different considerations and having various constraints in appropriately balancing the allocation of the resources that are needed throughout the municipal operation. In meeting the needs and expectations of our customers, and to address the many other factors that influence the budgeting process, the budget proposal that I'm presenting is for a total of $207,557,289 for spending across all budgets. This is a 4.4% increase overall over the prior year, and that is made up of a 5.2% increase for school-related appropriations, a 3.6 increase for all other non-school related expenses, which includes solid waste management and our public water and sewer utilities. A particular note, as is shown on this slide, is the 16.7% decrease in special revenue funds, which is due primarily to moving both the revenues and expenses associated with the curbside solid waste collection and disposal into the general fund. And this is to forego the need for a bag and tag fee increase both this year and next as we transition to the new toter system in 2027. It also is a reflection of the expiration of many federal and state grants that we have been able to utilize to offset expenses for various community needs following the COVID pandemic. In accepting and making use of those grants, when adopting earlier budgets, we had responsibly planned for their use and expiration to ensure that unsustainable budgetary burdens were not created. As such, the proposed budget fully completes this plan by absorbing some of the previously budgeted grant funds or services back into the general fund with minimal impact. The estimated city portion of the tax levy that results from the proposed budget, as it is currently being proposed to you, is $139,916 under the tax cap for the city portion of the formula. The estimated local school portion of the property tax levy is $2,526,603 over the school-related portion of the tax levy formula. As a result, the budget as presented is $2,389,687 above the amount allowed by the tax cap. Therefore, if the council were to adopt the budget as it is currently presented without any adjustments, it does require a 2/3 affirmative vote by the council as opposed to a simple majority if it were below the tax cap. As you go through the budget detail over the next several weeks, you will find that our community's overall strategic priorities and requirements for municipal services continue to be appropriately addressed throughout the proposed budget. These priorities have been derived and continue to be reinforced by listening to the voice of our customers. This is accomplished through a number of means, including actively engaging residents and business owners in collaborative planning and community problem-solving activities, encouraging citizen input during public hearings and public forums, such as even this evening, demands for services, and addressing the mandates imposed by federal and state agencies, and addressing other requirements that are put forth by various legislative bodies at the state and federal level. Ultimately, feedback from our customers drives the strategic planning that's incorporated into our community's master plan, and it reaffirms the following strategic focus across our entire municipal operation. That focus is public safety, which includes proactively protecting citizens and mitigating losses from medical emergencies, crime, fire, and natural and man-made disasters. Public education, supporting and providing access for all students to experience opportunities for quality education. Public infrastructure maintenance, which includes maintaining a safe and reliable transportation infrastructure for public roads, stormwater, drinking water, sewer systems, and all of our municipal facilities. Economic development includes supporting and encouraging a quality of life that sustains a robust economy and availability of quality employment. And fiscal stewardship, responsibly managing and ensuring the sustainability of financial practices that are necessary for the ongoing provision of all of our essential municipal services. The proposed fiscal year 26 budget allocates funds to maintain existing core services which support our strategic priorities across all facets of our municipal organization. These include the functions of general government, public safety, public works, culture and recreation, human services, and education. Also included in the budget is our community's required share of the funding for the intergovernmental services provided by Stratford County. In considering the funding that was requested by the various departments in determining what was necessary to include in the proposed budget now before you for core services and various activities and programs to be delivered and to continue to be delivered by our municipal government. I have ensured that funds were included specifically for those services that were mandated or otherwise legally required to be provided. Consideration was also given for those services that substantially covered their costs via grants or other user fees. Those services that had increasing demands for services, and those services that were not otherwise readily available via the private sector. Other considerations include avoiding across-the-board cuts, maintaining fees that support programs that have individual benefit or use, and of course, recognition that quality services continues to be provided and has to be provided by a staff that is dedicated and competent. Has been our practice for many years and continuing into next year, in addition to only maintaining staffing that's deemed essential. I do want to note that many of our services have been and will continue to be provided by contractors in the private sector. The proposed budget reflects certain adjustments to ensure that core service deliverables are not only maintained but address increasing demands while remaining sustainable in our budgets over the long term. In proposing the priorities and adjustments reflected throughout the proposed budget, consideration was given to ensure that our limited resources are being invested wisely into service areas that support leading practices. And some of the more significant adjustments in this year's proposed budget include the areas of public education, which reflects the funding amount most recently recommended by the Dover School Board to meet the school department's needs. In the area of public safety, the budget includes the required local match for the conclusion of a previous 4-year COPS grant award and funding for the start of a new 4-year COPS grant award that's intended to fully offset the cost of new police officer positions. It also reallocates funds to reassign existing fire command staff from a weekday-only schedule back to line duty, providing each of 4 shifts with 24/7 on-duty command officer coverage by having those chief officers return back to shift work. For sidewalk and bridge improvements, funding is proposed at the level reflected in the recently adopted capital improvements program. While street pavement overlay maintenance expenses increased over the prior year, as in most recent years, I'm proposing it to be slightly less than what was recommended in the CIP, was included in the adopted CIP. In the area of stormwater management, funding is increased for general drainage improvements and stormwater system maintenance within the general fund, the tax-supported portion of the general fund. And that is an expense that's necessary for achieving compliance with our community's Federal Clean Water Act permit obligations. The budget does fund recently approved contractual increases in solid waste and recycling, curbside collection and disposal costs. And it does reflect an increase in recycling center staff per the recommendation of the Solid Waste Advisory Commission. In order to sustain the current and future operations of curbside recycling and solid waste collection and avoid a need for increasing bag and tag fees, it also reflects that the existing solid waste special revenue fund it recommends absorbing that fund back into the general fund going forward. Continuing investment is made in repair and replacement of our utility infrastructure while ensuring compliance with the Clean Water Act for public drinking water standards and the environmental permitting obligations. It funds ongoing cybersecurity improvements, including network and building security, including ongoing updates to all of our systems in accordance with federal standards and industry best practices. And the budget accommodates a significant increase in Dover's share of coast public transit system expense for both inter and intercity routes, especially in light of the challenges of continuing federal and state funds for public transit. Other adjustments of note, as anticipated and budgeted over the course of the past 4 years, this budget fully absorbs the impact resulting from the expiration of substantial federal and state grant funds that had been made available and were utilized to offset costs following the COVID pandemic. There is an increase in fees charged for non-resident recreation programs, various programs. And the budget does include the elimination of one full-time recreation program supervisor position through attrition. And lastly, of note, both the water and sewer rates are adjusted to cover increasing expenses for supplies and maintenance necessary to ensure that we have safe and reliable drinking water and a subsequent proper downstream treatment and discharge of the resulting wastewater. This is a pie chart that shows the overall view of the general fund budget revenues. The general fund portion of the budget of the $200+ million overall budget, general fund comprises just over $169 million of the overall budget. The funds or the revenues that will support that budget are generated primarily from property taxes and then other non-tax revenues. The city tax levy represents about 26% of the revenue that's needed to support that budget. School tax levies, both local and state, account for about 42% of the property tax levy, and the county tax levy is about 7% of the revenues comprising the 169. And then the remainder is non-tax revenue, with about 14% being generated from city non-school operations and 11% coming from school operations. And included in that 11% would be things like grants, adequacy grant, for example, would be a major component of that. Those funds, in turn, those revenues are used to support the proposed expenses, which, surprisingly, unlike our federal government, have to equal each other. We can't have deficit funding, so our expenses are projected to be the same amount of $169 million and then a little bit more. And the breakout of where those funds are proposed to be expended include 37% for the non-school departmental operations, 4% for city debt service that's been incurred, 3% for school debt service that's been incurred, 49% goes for school department operations and maintenance, and 7% is sent to the county to cover their share of the county tax. So ultimately, this boils down to what is probably of most interest is what will the impact be on property tax bills, property tax rates, and subsequently property tax bills. So based on the estimates that are in the budget, we're looking at a total tax rate of $19.27, which is an increase of approximately $1.14 above the current tax rate. And the average tax bill, average residential tax bill based on the average valued home at $524,000 would represent a little over $10,000. That's a $578 increase, 6% increase over the prior year. Again, this is an average, and as I say every year, just keep in mind average. Some are going to be much higher, and some are going to be much lower. But at least for presenting an average, that's what we're looking at. So finishing up this evening, as you are aware, we will be embarking on, over the course of the next 2 months, a review of all the various areas of the budget, broken out primarily by departments. We will start this coming week on Thursday. We'll have another meeting on Wednesday, but we will have a budget meeting on Thursday at 7 p.m. here, and we will have an overview by the school department of their portion of the budget, as well as the executive, finance, and welfare departments. On Wednesday, February 26th, the following week, you'll have a regular meeting, and during that meeting, we will schedule the school department's school budget public hearing. It'll be an opportunity for residents to come out and specifically comment on the school budget during that hearing. The following Wednesday, on March 5th, we will return to a workshop meeting. We'll go over the police, fire, recreation, and planning department budgets. And then the following week, Wednesday, March 12th, is another regular meeting. And for that meeting, we will have the second public hearing for the budget, which deals with the city non-school portion of the budget. And then continuing on March 19th, the subsequent week, we will have Community Services Department, the library, and the information technology portion of our budget to review. And then the intent is that the following week, April 2nd, that Wednesday, we will begin the evening with a workshop meeting to go over any final questions, discussion, proposals for adjusting the budget. And then if the council is ready at that point, we will immediately go into a special meeting that evening and vote to adopt the budget. If for some reason we need more time, we certainly can add more time, more meetings and so forth if needed. But we have scheduled April 9th, which would be a normal regular meeting, to be the fallback date for your budget adoption, to ensure that you have a budget adopted by the deadline of April 15th. You are required by charter to adopt a budget based on the date that's been set of April 15th. If you do not, the budget that's been presented to you goes into effect by default. That in and of itself there's only been one instance that I can recall in 30 plus years that has happened. But even so, if that were to happen, which I don't expect it will, but if it were to happen, there still will be an opportunity after that for the council to come back, amend the budget, and ultimately adopt your budget, which is obviously one of your most important tasks as an elected city council. So I don't have any reason to suspect we'll get there. It's very rare that would ever happen. So finally, as always, I wish to thank the school board, the school superintendent, our department heads, and all of their staff for the effort invested in assembling the proposed budget, all the while continuing to ensure that our services are delivered with quality and efficiency. I also wish to extend my appreciation and ask you to join me in acknowledging Dan Lynch, our finance director, once again, along with his staff, for the considerable effort that they make each and every year in putting together this document of well over 800 pages of detail, and then much of the supporting materials that go along with it and that you'll be seeing in the coming weeks. And then lastly, I want to recognize the significant and often extraordinary efforts that each and every one of our municipal employees makes each and every day, delivering the many services and programs that contribute to the overall quality of life that we enjoy here in our community. There are teachers, maintenance workers, administrative, professional staff, our public safety forces. We are well served here in Dover by their dedication and perseverance and their overall commitment to our citizens. And so please join me in acknowledging and thanking them for the difference they make in our own lives each and every day. Thank you, and I'd be happy to take any questions at this point.
Any councilors want to open it up? Any questions?
Not yet.
Enjoy your heavy reading.
Thanks for listening to the Dover Download this week. If you like what you heard, subscribe through your favorite podcast aggregator. And if you have something you want to hear a topic on, let us know. Finally, this is just one of the many ways we share information about the city of Dover. You can subscribe to the Dover Downloads email newsletter every week or other newsletters that we have by going to the City of Dover homepage, www.dover.nh.gov. Have a great week.